So Predator Badlands came out, and to be quite fair, it's a pretty good movie. It's a decent, what I would call popcorn flick, and that you will go into it and enjoy the movie, enjoy the scenes. It's probably not going to be a movie you return to often. It's not a generational movie, certainly not to the level of the first Predator, but it's a pretty good flick. Some weird stuff with the translation, but some really good action scenes, and I liked it. I would say, obviously, on the top of the tier of Predator movies is Predator 1, Predator 2, and then this movie is kind of like the second tier level of Predator movies in the franchise, which would be The Predators, which is where they have all the mercenaries going to the planet. The Prey version that came out, was it last year or 2 years ago? And then this one. Then below that, there's like the Aliens versus Predator movies. Probably the only really truly bad movie was The Predator, I think it was called. Came out, I don't know, 10 years ago. And a movie so bad that I watched it twice because I couldn't remember what the movie was about. And then after watching it the second time, I still don't quite remember it, which means there's probably nothing memorable about it. Which makes me think, I kind of remember there's something to do with autism in it. But it sounds so unbelievable that maybe I just made that up and I just don't remember it. But in any case, this movie is, it's good, but it also brings up this idea of what I'm going to call demystification. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's definitely a trend that we are seeing in franchises, and that you start finding out a lot about the characters in a way that may not necessarily make sense from the original version of the characters. So, first Predator movie, first Alien movie as well, you have this creature, this being that nobody knows about. And those films start off as horror films in a way, because it's about a bunch of people who suddenly find themselves in a situation where they're being essentially hunted by creatures that they know nothing about. And it's this mystery which is useful for the audience, because you're in the same boat as the protagonist. They don't know what the hell's going on. You don't know anything about the creature. So when the audience sees the protagonist making kind of dumb moves, you kind of go, yeah, I get it. The challenge is when you demystify characters, or in this case creatures, and you find out about their mythology, you find out their background, their culture, and all that stuff, you now find yourself in the position where you know a lot more about the creature than the people in the movie themselves. So when people make mistakes, you start seeing them as kind of doing dumb things because you have a base of knowledge that they're not aware of. So when the characters in, let's say, the Alien movies, where they're sitting around and they like take their helmets off and then they end up getting infested by aliens, everybody goes, well, that was so dumb. Why would they do something so stupid? That's because they probably didn't think they were going to be attacked by some strange alien creature. But because we already know what it is, we start judging their mistakes as being dumb. And the other thing about it is when you demystify a character, a lot of times it can be done well, but most of the time it's done to satisfy this need to want to know more. And the general rule in marketing, for example, is that you always want to make the audience left in a state of wanting more. But when you demystify, when you deconstruct, when you explore more about the history of a character and you tell them everything about it, that desire goes away, because now there's a bit of a lack of wanting to know about the past. And so in a movie like this, in Predator Badlands, you get this background of the predator and what's going on in his situation between his father and what happened with his brother and all that stuff. And yes, I get that it essentially humanizes them, but at the same time, it brings up this question: should we know about them? Because now, let's say there's a Predator movie that comes out next year, and we want it to be a terrifying horror movie like the original. Not that the original was terrifying, but you get my point. Now, us as an audience, we can't undo what we know. We know that these creatures now have these kind of individual background stories and we can relate to them. And that might be a bad thing because we kind of want them to be these mysterious, vile, evil creatures that have no other purpose but to hunt the humans, hunt the people who think that they're badasses, but they're nothing compared to a predator. And I wonder if when you demystify a character or culture, is are you willing to commit to that? Because, one of the faults I had found with, for example, the Boba Fett series that came out in Disney Plus was that they humanized the Sand People. And which is good if you like that sort of stuff. But the problem is, in a way, when you demystify a group of people or you demystify a creature, a lot of times you're just piling them in with another group of creatures and people who've already been demystified. Because now people look at them and they go, oh, well, they're like a tribe of people. They're a tribe of, Native Americans. It's an analogy for Native Americans. And now they have to have habits, culture, traditions, rituals, things which on the surface can be good, but then after a while it becomes, it's almost like a mockery of Native Americans in that sense. And unless they do something that's very, very well executed to make them unique, they just become like every other tribal type of people. Versus when you have the Sand People just be these creatures who just shoot at you and kill you and do bad things. Nobody likes them because they're out there just killing people. You have you create this vacancy, this gap that allows the imagination to go wild. So, for example, the original Star Wars trilogy or the original Predator movie, there is a lot of people, thousands if not millions of people, who in the back of their minds created a backstory for the Predators. Maybe it was subconscious, maybe it was conscious, but in any case, whatever they came up with is not going to be matched by what movie makers put on paper or put on screen. Because of that, a lot of times it doesn't live up to the expectations of what somebody might have had. You could read like fanfic that was written before the prequels came out in Star Wars. And what you'll find is some of those things are really, really good. Most of them are terrible, but some of them have some interesting ideas. And I get that the Predator was explored more in the comic books, and there's some other books, and even like in the Star Wars universe, they explore those nuances as well. But the problem is when you solidify something that was before a mystery, the most powerful movie that you can create is the movie within the mind and the imagination of the viewer, of the audience, because that's an unlimited budget. And when you start to present something that has this mystery and then you fill in the gaps, unless it's done in a very unique way, oftentimes you end up with people going, oh, okay, well, that's cool. So we'll see. We'll see what they have in mind as they go forward with the Predator series. I don't know if there is a plan to make any more immediate movies, but it'll be interesting. I will say that this one was a pretty unique telling. It was different. It's a different type of Predator movie, like I said. So if you can, go see it. You might love it, you might hate it. I'm not really going to review it. There's 1,000 other videos out there on YouTube that do a much better job than I can. But just keep in mind this question of, should things be demystified eventually? Or do you think that we should keep things continuously just sort of, a mystery? Should we have a lot of unknown things, right? Because is it better to know who, for example, the killer is in Scream? Or is it better to never see the face of Michael Myers? Unless you count when he was a kid. Because it's that difference probably shows what type of movies you prefer. Like me, I was the guy when the Halo series came out, I didn't want the helmet to ever come off because I like that mystery. I like when Judge Dredd never takes his helmet off. I think it gives him a bit of an edge, something unique, something that's going to make him do, something that's not necessarily understood by the audience, right? Because we don't understand his motivations necessarily, and that makes a really memorable character. Versus, I know there's other people, they want to know everything about a character, so they want to know the backstory, the lore, they want to know everything. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward, but I like a little mystery in my characters, so let me know what you guys think. Thanks for listening. Bye.